Welcome to the Period Besties Podcast with Stasha and Katie. Think about it as chatting with your best friends about all the TMI stuff you've never talked about before with two period coaches who've been helping hormones collectively for over 20 years now. I'm Stasha.
And I'm Katie, and we're pulling back the curtain on what it's like in the world of menstrual coaching. From puberty to menopause and everything in between, we're here to show you how period coaching can save the day. We'll share practical tips and information you can put to immediate use to improve your hormones and happiness.
We're removing the mystery, ending the taboo, and shining a light on just how powerful period coaching can be.
So whether you need period coaching or are considering becoming a period coach yourself, these episodes are going to help you. We'll share stories, coach live on air, and bring smart, savvy guests to share their wisdom too. Let's start today's episode.
This was such a fun episode to record. We got to speak with the authors of the Great Menopause Myth, Kristen and Maria. And I mean, Katie and we have both been nerding out reading this book, back and forth talking, oh my gosh, did you see this? Did you see this? And going through it. Such a good book. So really excited to talk to these two besties and get the lowdown on the menopause and perimenopause and everything. What a fascinating and super interesting episode. Get a piece of paper and a pen out or your notes app out, because I think you're going to have some notes you want to take during this episode.
Definitely, especially the part about kind of like feel that the pushback that I get from some people is like, well, why would you even start HRT? Like, people didn't do this back in the day. And we really dive into that because I think that's so important to just have that information and that knowledge, because I don't know about you, but I want to grow very long and healthy. And all of us, I feel like that's a goal, right? So it's one of those things where really thinking and putting it into perspective in that sense, right? Would you rather be on HRT now versus statins and all the other medication that most people are being put on 60s? I would say even in their 50s, honestly.
Yeah,
absolutely. So I think it's one of those things where it just is a really insightful interview. Take your notes, like Stasha said, but also really rethink maybe who your doctors are and your providers too, and really get additional support and seek that out in this time of your life.
Yeah. And I love the fact that we had such a great discussion. Yet again, reinforcing what Katie and I have been telling you a million times, chart and track your ovulation.
Yes.
As it turns out, it's far more enlightening as to where you are on your course of perimenopause than anything else. So just once again, I love every time someone comes on here and is like, oh gosh, ovulation, man, you really need to be tracking that, because it's just like, yes, keep tracking your ovulation.
I mean, it's so much information in just the tracking, right there. It's like
so good.
Amazing. Yeah.
So thank you so much for listening. Get your pen and paper out. And without further ado, our Wise and Well duo.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to a special episode of Period Besties, where we have another set of besties joining us today. So excited. Been following Wise and Well for years and love their new book, The Great Menopause Myth. My background's blurred. Sorry. We're in the middle of moving. We have stuff everywhere, but the books are behind everybody. And we are so excited to chat with Kristen and Maria and just really talk a little bit more in depth about perimenopause and menopause and the whole journey and all the things that we all need to know to help support us on this journey. So we are so honored. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, sure. For having us.
To start us off, we would love to hear a little bit about both of your backgrounds and then how you came together to create Wise and Well.
Sure. So I was probably about 43 when I started to feel just not like myself. I didn't quite know it was perimenopause at the time, but I shortly found out soon after I started to have this compilation of symptoms, not really severe symptoms, but more like I just felt off, and it was mostly mood-based and sleep-based as well. So I did seek out a doctor in New York City, and it was an interesting experience. I got a lot of tests. It was supposed to be a holistic medical center. It was partly holistic, but he ended up starting me on hormone replacement therapy. Mind you, I was either 43 or 44. That's not necessarily too young. I probably should have started then, but I only stayed with it for about 6 to 9 months because I got no support, no education, no teaching whatsoever, tons of supplements. And I just was at that point, I was a little bit turned off and I was like, I need to know more. I can't go into a doctor and be completely like, just have at me, do what you want. I need to be like a participant in this process. And it was at that point that I went back to school and sought mentorships. And like I said, I found out shortly after that I was in perimenopause. Yeah.
Yeah, so mine's similar timing, somewhat similar experience. So I was 43 also when this whole kind of cluster of things, which now they are referring to as NFLM, not feeling like myself. And for me, it manifested as I just wasn't able to perform and achieve the way I was used to. I had been a corporate attorney. And then I had 3 kids, and while I was practicing law, and then once we moved out east, I stopped practicing, but I was involved in legislative action committees and school funding and all sorts of different things. And I thrived off of having lots of fingers in different pies. And that was just my MO. And then I found myself struggling. It was struggling like I needed lists to get through the day. I needed lists to remind me of my lists, to organize things. And that was earth shaking for me. Like, what is happening? I'm just not myself. And you start to question things, right? I didn't have anxiety or anything like that. But then the sleep deprivation kicked in. And then I would say the libido was gone. But I was also used to always being involved in so much that it was easy to be like, I'm just stressed out or I'm just overwhelmed. And so I was always finding excuses and never really understanding that anything was going on. And for me, partly, I think I had a lot of hormonal suppression because I had my last baby at 31, and by 32, I was on hormonal IUD. And that negates the whole, oh, there are cycle changes happening or all the precursors or early signs of something happening. So I had no clue. And my mom had surgical menopause at 32. So I didn't have her benchmark to go off it as well. So I started going to the doctor thinking something was medically wrong with me. I'm like, there is something up. At first asked, I'm like, could you just test everything? Nope, you're too young. It's not possible that it's hormones. We're not going to test it. So over about 6 months, I went back 8 different times. I'm like, is it lupus? Do I have Lyme disease? Could it be RA? I was like begging for something to explain this to me. And I was gaslit the whole time. And unlike Maria, who was given opportunities, but not really given the resources to utilize them well, I was given no opportunities. I was told, this is in your head. There's nothing wrong with you. You're too young for any of this to be relevant, etc. And now we know in retrospect, I was most likely fully menopausal in my early 40s because by the time at 48, I had my IUD removed. I was wildly, deeply menopausal at that point. And just looking at blood tests and breast changes and things that were happening, they're quite certain it had happened much earlier. I, frustrated with the lack of options given to me, did exactly what Maria did. I'm like, okay, fine. I'm going to get educated on this because I don't believe any of you any longer. Went back to school and started working grassroots, local community stuff, whatnot, with nutrition and helping women, and realized I'm not alone. This is happening to a lot of my peers and contemporaries. So that's when I started seeking, okay, I need to figure out more this hormonal angle, start looking at different testing modalities, different things. And I went searching for additional training in that regard. And Maria had been doing this for a while. She had a training program. And so I took it and we hit it off. And then we were both running our own respective practices, but she was launching something that she's, hey, could you help me with this? And I was like, sure. So I came in and was tag teaming with clients with her. And by the time that program ran its course, we were like, this was really nice. I don't want to work alone any longer. There's a lot of burnout and compassion fatigue in this business. And that was really when we gave birth to Wise and Well and said, let's just make this kind of a fierce passion between the two of us. We represent opposite ends of the spectrum of how women journey through this and how they experience the system and everything. And so that was really the beginning. And then we just decided there were certain fundamentals, like we don't want women to overlook or just blame everything on their hormones. We want them to see there's daily lifestyle choices and habits that we have that can impact these. And so we really worked hard to come up with our model, which is to say everyone needs a foundational, basic education on what are the low-hanging fruits that each one of us has control over every day. Let's optimize those things, and then let's dive into these hormonal influences. So, and here we are.
I love that. And everything you're saying, I'm like nodding. Sasha and I like, yeah, I am 45 and I had my twin boys. I turned 41 a week before they were born. So I literally went from postpartum to perimenopause.
Yeah.
And for a while I was like, I don't even know where I am.
Yeah.
And then last year at 44, it just hit me around this time last year, actually.
Maria and I joke, there's a 43, 44 like moment, just as now the studies are showing there is a 44, 64 moment.
Yeah.
This is, I think it's the one universality of peri, to be perfectly honest. Everything else is so varied and each one of us can manifest in a different way. But those benchmarks of age, it's just like you just hit a moment and you're like, what is up?
Oh my God. Yeah, it was crazy in terms of the what's up. It happened. It felt like a storm.
Yeah.
Okay, we're here.
Yeah.
I'm right behind Katie. I'm just a year behind her, and or not even, but yeah, I definitely have hit those same benchmarks. I have the extra addition of having a very painful period. So unsurgically diagnosed endometriosis. So yeah, but it's been since the beginning, which is actually what got me into it. So similarly, you don't get help, you get traumatized, you're left with no education and no support or anything. And then you just are told to go on with your life. And you know that I was a teenager and there was a voice in my head screaming, no, this is not right. This is not, no, I refuse to believe.
Or if it is, this sucks.
I refused. And in my 20s, I refused to believe. And then I started really in my 20s, just reading everything I possibly could on menstrual cycles and everything. And that's so right there with you. I love it. And now hitting perimenopause, doing all that same, like, all right, let's get back into the school mode and start reading all the books and learning all the things and doing all the stuff. I love it. It's such a true journey. And actually, before we dive into the nitty gritty of perimenopause, I'm curious this is an odd field to be in, right? Like, I've been doing period coaching for over 10 years now, like probably around 15 years. So it's definitely been a journey with lots of ups and downs and comments and whatnot, but it's so soul fulfilling.
Yeah.
That's what keeps you going. But I want to know, what do you love about doing this work?
That's a really nice question, actually. We love when women get on with us and they say things like, we change their lives. And I don't mean that to bring attention to ourselves. In fact, I'm even hesitant to say that. And it doesn't happen with everyone, but there are some women who just have these profound kind of experiences. I'll just give you an example. One is a woman who was menopausal in her 30s and didn't start HRT, Kristen, until late 50s?
Yeah.
And she was going downhill over the course of 15, 20 years. And her life has been profoundly changed.
Yeah.
So it's those moments.
The
They
ones
keep us
we
thinking.
hear when they say, you guys made me hopeful again, because I think there is not a lot of education around the menstrual cycle. There's not. And if Maria and I could change one thing, I mean, our own personal journeys aside, it would be to teach girls starting pre-puberty and puberty everything that's going on, not just that menstrual cycle, but what that menstrual cycle represents for their health, what those hormones are doing beyond fertility and making them bleed every month. If all of us knew that, we would be like, oh, it's not Aunt Flo or the so-and-so who came to visit each month that we all loathe and hate and we joke about in the locker room. This is my kind of superpower. And this is my bellwether of health. And when it isn't right, like you and me, Stasha, I had horrific painful periods and bleeding and whatnot, like gushing and passing out in the shower. Shutting it down with birth control is not the right place to go, right? And girls would be better informed to be able to make good decisions, or maybe be like, gosh, geez, Chris, maybe eating a bag of Doritos and bean dip with Diet Coke every day after school wasn't the best thing, but sorry, I was a kid of the 70s and 80s, so that's the way it went. But that sort of education would completely change the trajectory of every single woman's life, her experience with peri, etc. But so when Maria and I get women in their 50s and 60s who don't have the benefit of that education and don't understand, and they think their body has betrayed them and they think there's something wrong with them and that they're broken in some way, when we help them understand what's going on and we give them options and help them with solutions, they are so profoundly sad about what they missed all those years prior, angry at the amount of money and trust they instilled in people who did not bother to teach them and empower them. And then they look at us and say, you made me hopeful. Even the ones who say, it's not all perfect yet. I'm still struggling with some of these things, but I have hope now. And that, honestly, the last 2 years have been absolute burnout for me and Maria. We have been handle at both ends, really sacrificing a lot, at times finding friction between the two of us because we're just fried. And we're blessed to have each other to be like, nope, we're going to keep pushing. When that goes back and forth, who's the motivator? But it takes one day when a woman says, thank you guys for giving me hope, that we're like, and it's all good now. Like, and we can keep doing this for a while. So that piece of it, I think, is huge. And it's taught us that an empowered woman is a really hopeful and happy woman. Even if it's not all perfect, she feels knowledgeable. She's good.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm often fond of saying my goal is to put myself out of business.
Oh, we say that all the time.
You get it.
Yeah.
We get that.
Yeah.
So get it, right there with you. I feel the same way. I started my business with the idea of I can just save one woman from going through the pain I went through, then I will have felt like I did it. And now it's just if I can save another.
Well, and I always say it's usually our personal needs that get most of us into this kind of holistic functional space, right? And then you're almost like, well, if I can just help my sister or my girlfriend or whatever. And then you realize the power and the momentum, and it's okay, we're going to roll with this for a while.
So shall we dive into the nitty gritty?
Yeah.
All right. So we have a bunch of questions. Katie and I have been pouring through your books. You probably can't see it, but there's like
I do see it. Yeah.
all the way down the side of my book and there's like highlighters and everything. So we just thought it would be great to use the podcast as an opportunity to dive into some of the gems and golds in here. And we thought one of the things that you guys talk about so well is HRT and all the different versions of it these days. And when do we start? Those kind, oh my goodness, it's very overwhelming, right? There's a lot of conflicting information out there. You look at Instagram and everyone's got an opinion about HRT and what it is and when to start. So could you just give us a little bit of groundwork on HRT and all the new acronyms coming out? You've got them in your book. Thank you so much for listing them, and they're very helpful. Would you give a little groundwork there for us?
Oh, that's a wide swath, but we'll try to start.
You can buy the book and get the whole thing. We'll just get a snippet today.
So ideally you start in perimenopause, whether that's early or mid or late perimenopause. That's a little bit hard to determine. Because you just don't know how long it's going to go on for. But let's just say you're in your 40s and you've skipped a full 60 days without a menstrual cycle. Like you're pretty deep into perimenopause at that point. So no need to reset the clock and go another 12 months or what have you. No, you're deep in peri. So you can start then. And then your symptoms may be somewhat of a guide, but not always. Not all women have symptoms. You can often, perimenopausal women can just start with progesterone, but they will need estradiol eventually. And what else?
I think for the hormone therapy piece, right? There's a lot of different ways to use the nomenclature. And I think that's where confusion comes up. And so if we just go with straight hormone therapy, like there's some very dyed-in-the-wool conventional white coat doctors who are like, hormone therapy is only for, let's say, growth hormone deficiency or pituitary disorders or transgender conversion. That's to them hormone therapy. Then we look at hormone therapy in order to address thalamic amenorrhea or infertility. Totally different and distinct hormone therapy approach. What we're talking about is using hormones to essentially maintain or restore the cascade of biological events that were controlled by our ovarian cycle. So this kind of, we have to almost go backwards and say the ovarian cycle was not just about triggering a bleed each month. It wasn't about picking a dominant follicle and creating an egg that needs to be fertilized, etc. The ovarian cycles, this is why Maria and I try and back away from menstrual cycle, because that's focusing on menses, right? We want to talk about the ovarian cycle, which was essentially this beautiful rhythmic dance between estrogen and progesterone over the course of 28 days, One's on board all the time. One only comes in for a short period. And they have undulating amounts and rhythms and whatnot. All of that is by design. It's not, oh gosh, we mapped it out and this is this like unique, quirky way that our hormones are produced. No, they're there and they're following this rhythm specifically for things like bone remodeling, for maintaining the vascular structures of our arteries, for our tau protein clearance in the brain, our p53 tumor suppression with cancer. If we step back and all agree that ovarian cycle had all of these events that it was controlling, we all accept the endocrine system, beautiful orchestra, needs a conductor, all these instruments have to play together to make beautiful music. That cycle, that effect is what we're talking about with respect to midlife women, perimenopause, postmenopause, hormone replacement therapy. You can call it hormone restoration therapy in order to focus on the restoration of these cycles. However you want to approach it, we don't really care. But there is one tell in this whole thing, and that's menopausal hormone therapy, which is the new acronym du jour. It's really not that new, but it's becoming more prevalent because of Instagram and the menopause gold rush that's going on, and lots of these OBGYNs and urologists and other doctors who are pivoting their platforms to suddenly be menopause specialists, even though they're actually quite new to it. Menopausal hormone therapy is the use of putting some hormones back in a woman's body in order to suppress symptoms. It is not about restoring that gorgeous orchestral cascade and rhythm. And that's where we try and make the distinction for women in the book. Because right now there's this tension between conventional approaches, North American Menopause Society, talking points, etc., saying MHT is fine, this menopausal hormone therapy, to address symptoms. And oh, by the way, only specific symptoms, specifically osteoporosis and hot flashes. And that hormone replacement or hormone restoration therapy is unnecessary because there's no evidence that a woman needs it. Maria and I are not uber feminists. We're not going to get into the whole patriarchy, blah, 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 blah crap that a lot of people try and create tribalism around this topic. But there is, unfortunately, a fairly negative message there saying, hey, you ladies who are aging, you're past your childbearing years, 50s, 60s, and 70s, do you really need sufficient hormones? We accept you needed them in your 20s and 30s, but do you really need them that much now? Nah. And that's what's going on. So Maria and I tried in the book to really lay out that historical perspective, the functional application of hormones in a woman's body, why a woman might want to consider it, and then everything that they have as an option. Maria kind of hinted, we've got estrogen, multiple ways to deliver estrogen. We have progesterone, multiple ways to deliver it. We've got how do you combine them? How do you cycle them? How do you do all these things? It's not a one size fits all. HRT is super complex and detailed. It doesn't have to be confusing, but it does have to be understood before a woman undertakes it.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. I feel like something I would love to chat about is something that my friend keeps asking me about because I've been talking about hormone replacement therapy, perimenopause. And her thing is, but why can't I just age naturally? Like, why is it, how did she phrase it? In the sense of, this happened before, like, why can't I just like
all the time?
Favorite topic.
Yeah. And I was like, well, because you don't have to suffer.
That's not even it.
That's true too. At the end of the day, like, why not?
Yeah,
exactly.
I know I want to hear your thoughts because,
I love this question.
Conversations.
Because I have been in the past, I'm probably not as much today, but I think my core, like, I'm a pretty crunchy girl. Pretty crunchy granola. Like two of my babies were born at home and breastfed for over a year each child, made your own baby food, try to get toxins out of the house type of a thing. Yeah, I'm pretty crunchy.
It was decades ahead of her time. Let's put it that way. So it's not like today where that's almost the norm. And some of your listeners might be going, I do that. It's like Maria's kids are in their 30s, ladies. So this is a big deal back then.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. I think, Okay, so people that knew Maria as crunchy growing up are surprised to know that Maria, who has been crunchy for a while, like Kristen said, we're early adopter. Well, why would you give the green light to HRT? I'm like, okay, after really looking at the research, I think it's actually safer to age with it than without it. I try to tell that to people, to flip the paradigm on its head. Everyone thinks it's dangerous. No, it's dangerous to age without it. And how did we also, for the people that want to do it natural, you say that at 40, you say that at 50, you say that at 55, but then come and talk to me at 60 and maybe even like 63, 62, 63. Women at around the early 60s, they've crossed over into this threshold where even if they have eaten healthy and exercised and they don't smoke, just really been health conscious their whole lives, we get those people and they have osteoporosis and they have
statins,
heart disease. Yeah. Saying that, you say you want to do it naturally, you want to age naturally. Yeah. Is that gonna go the distance for you? And we say probably not. But then Kristen's favorite way of saying how to do menopause naturally, Kristen, is what is natural menopause through the decades? If there are a decade.
In the 1900s, it was death. And I think we have to be really honest about that. We were not living a third to a half of our lives without hormones.
Yeah.
Call it in menopause, however you want to call it. We were not living that long. And women were dying much earlier. And so now there's this huge quest for longevity, but we're overlooking health span. And if you look at, yes, women are living longer, we're not living more healthfully at all. In fact, we're living with a worse health span than we had when we were dying earlier.
Yeah.
What does that mean? The more years that we live, we're not getting those years in our 30s. They're in our 90s, right? And we're not having the same mitochondrial function. We don't have the same hormone sufficiency, et cetera. If you were 32 years old and you lose your period and it's gone, whether it's hypothalamic amenorrhea or it's some idiopathic issue, whatever, and you might go, it's okay, I don't want to have kids, so this is good. And the doctors will go, Stasha, I need to put an estrogen patch on you because you're going to have heart disease by the time you're 45. You're going to have bones that are brittle like an 80-year-old in your 40s. So we need to do this. So these same people who say, I want to do menopause naturally, fully accept that a 20 and 30-year-old girl would be at health risks and chronic disease risks if we continued to let her go through life without her hormones. Why in the hell would we go without our hormones 50, 60, 70, 80 ages when we know what the outcomes are? It impacts our chronic disease risk significantly. So that's one thing. And as Maria hinted, how natural are 14 pharmaceuticals at age 65?
Right.
And then, okay, what if you're a diabetic? So it's not natural to give them insulin. Should we just not give a diabetic insulin? We accept that, right? Because it causes disease process. Guess what, ladies? The loss of your sex hormones causes disease processes too. Whether you want to accept it or not, it does. And this is where I think Maria and I get so frustrated that the focus right now on social media is symptoms.
Yeah.
And a lot of these younger generations are coming in. We can make an argument both ways, but many of them are coming in at least more aware of metabolic health. And those that have really dialed in metabolic health and they're not under eating and they're not over exercising and they're not hyper focused on aesthetics and they truly are embracing health, they might have really few symptoms or none at all. And so if we just identify hormone loss's imperatives as being avoiding symptoms, we have a newsflash for you. Maria just exactly laid out at age 63, symptoms or no symptoms, shit's going to hit the fan. And this is where we want women to pay attention because you can't stop that stuff once it's already locked in place, right? So why try and, manage a disease when you could prevent it?
It's basically making a trade, right? Like you can take the preventative, bioidentical, essentially hormonal supplements now,
right,
or you can take the statins and the heart issues and all that.
Bisphosphonates for your bones and anti-anxiety meds.
Side effects and damaging sides later. So
correct.
Yeah. Is there a time where, okay, I guess two prongs to this. So if you start taking your HRT in your 40s or whenever your perimenopause stuff starts to happen, is there a time that you come off of it? And then on the flip side of the coin, is it too late to start it if you're postmenopausal?
Good, really good questions. You stay on HRT for as long as you want to be healthy. So that's forever, hopefully.
Nice.
Yeah. Hopefully. Yeah. 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 And is it too late to start? No. And I want to go back because your question begs something that Maria and I just got asked yesterday, which is, if I start HRT in perimenopause, how will I know when I'm menopausal or postmenopausal? How do I know that I've crossed that threshold? It doesn't matter. It does not matter. So if you're taking HRT in a way, especially in perimenopause, you should be matching the cycle, right? You would be cycling your progesterone day 14 to day 28. You're still having a monthly bleed, et cetera. That can continue ad nauseum, et cetera, into the future. So you never go 365 days without a period. You never technically hit this truly artificial definition of menopausal. And that bothers these perimenopausal women for some reason. It's like they want this stamp that says, I hit menopause. Maria and I are like, really, you don't. Because if you hit menopause, that means you've gone that long without sex hormones. And guess what? Even a short amount of time without sex hormones can lead to detrimental changes to your health. It doesn't really matter for the perimenopausal girls. You start your HRT, you never wait to hit the wall. You don't need to know that you crossed the magic finish line. You're not getting a participation trophy for it. That's just the reality. And then you continue on with your life healthfully. But if you've got someone listening who, let's say, is 62 and she's, holy crap, I'm already getting the push for statins. I already have osteopenia, et cetera. Have I missed the boat? What is it, Maria? Have they missed the boat?
No.
No.
But ideally women don't wait because you'll get more benefit the earlier you start. There may come a point where the only thing that you get is quality of life issues taken care of with your HRT. And that's no small thing, right? Quality of life it's a big deal. And what we mean by that is you may not be able to reverse osteoporosis, but you can keep it from getting worse. But it appears that, again, we do the HRT early, not the only thing. We still need to strength train and eat right. It looks like you can avoid it altogether if you do.
Or reverse it if you're young enough, right?
Young
So
enough.
the women who are 50, 48, 50, and they're osteopenic already, they can get back to a normal Z-score on their bones with their DEXA scan. That's going to be harder the longer you go without hormones. So you might be able to hold off going from osteopenia to osteoporosis if you're a 65-year-old woman and you start your hormones then, but you actually can reverse it when you're earlier. And that's why we're saying symptoms or no symptoms, these changes are happening under the hood. Maria likes to say, you can't feel the tau protein deposition in your plaque. You can't feel coronary artery calcium depositing. You can't feel those bone mineral changes. Whether or not you feel something is irrelevant because the changes are happening. You only become aware of them when you have a diagnosis.
Yeah. Sounds to me, all right, an official petition to change the definition of menopause from lack of periods to just straight up lack of ovulation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if you're tracking ovulation, I have no chance of getting pregnant, but I still track ovulation because I want to know where I am at my perimenopause journey, right? Like I'm officially not ovulated for a month, but I got my period. So I would never have known if I wasn't tracking ovulation.
Well, that's why education's so important. Yep.
And we think all women should be tracking all the time because let's say you're 33 and you start skipping your ovulatory cycles. It's probably a temporary thing caused by maybe a recent illness or super stress in your body or whatever. But boy, that should get your attention. And this is where this early education on, instead of the menstrual cycle, the ovarian cycle, getting girls to understand that this is like literally a cheat code for health. Yeah. And that they could be in charge of it and not going, oh crap, now I'm dropping blood clots the size of golf balls and I'm doubled over in pain. I should probably go see the doctor. That probably started a few months ago, right? So there's so much to be learned by ladies when it comes to this cycle. And you guys are in the position to be just hammering this home. Maria and we got the ladies who that ship has sailed. So we need to teach them about, okay, how do we mitigate some of these effects of this?
Yeah.
I have a question for my mom. She's 74 and heart disease runs in our family. I'm assuming it's also not too late, even in your 70s.
Yeah, Maria.
Love to get my 76-year-old mom on HRT.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have a client who started 72?
69.
69. She's 72 now. Yeah.
72 or 73. Yeah, she's doing great. Yeah.
It's a different approach, right? You have more tools in the toolbox the younger you are when it comes to starting your HRT. As you get older, there are different concerns because she has probably some vascular changes already, right? She probably has some things going on. And so they need to work with a provider who's maybe going to slow walk them into it, who's going to maybe use different regimens of HRT. She doesn't probably need the same robust levels that Maria and I love, but like Maria said, it's the quality of life changes. Her heart disease risk could be at least halted where it's at, if not maybe slightly improved. Her sleep could get better. What do we know about sleep? Massive cascade to health changes, right? So there are huge upsides still for older women, even as old as your mom. They're just different. They're different than what you could benefit from or we would benefit from.
Let me share something interesting, though, about the 70-year-olds. And this is not necessarily your mom, Katie, but this is what I found with my mom. And that is, and by the way, I probably started talking to her about this about 4 years ago. Just recently brought it up again, but I started in earnest and I was like, oh, come on. I'll take a visit with you to a doctor. We'll travel if we have to, blah, blah, blah. And she lacked the ability to think and say, if this, then that, and let me think about this. And I call it like lack of cognitive endurance. And it makes me sad because I'm wondering, did she like miss out? Because right now at 76, she can't concept it. She can't process this through her brain. And it drives me crazy in a sad way. Oh my gosh, because it could help her in so many ways.
Yeah, especially that entire generation had no.
Oh, the 70s are the forgotten generation.
Yeah.
Because
I'm going to go for my mom and say the 80s are the screwed generation. They got screwed because many of them, if they were given it, they were given
80-year-old you're referring to?
Yeah.
Yeah. 70s and 80s. Yeah.
Yeah. My mom, if she were still alive, would be 86 now. And she was offered the synthetic horse urine, endocrine disrupting, progestins, breast cancer risk increasing, et cetera. Those ladies were given something, wasn't optimal, but Maria and I have already said openly that if they took away all current hormone replacement options and they only offered us these synthetic pharmaceutical things, we'd probably still dabble in it because something triggering our receptors is better than nothing at the end of the day. But those ladies in their 80s, they got it and then it was taken away from them. So they had to go through it twice.
Yeah.
That was horrible to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's just so interesting because like you look the whole history of it and why we're so invested in this in our own journey is because unfortunately the knowledge is not coming from our moms.
No, and we don't want to age like them either,
Yeah.
right? We love all our moms, but we look at this and we're like, that's not what I want for my future. Yeah, I'm not working this hard at 54 to be kicking my butt in the gym and saying no to the cookies after dinner and everything else in order to be living the way I see some of them living. So
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, speaking of some of those things that you do, what are some of your day-to-day, don't need a doctor or a prescription, just like self-care non-negotiables to support your perimenopause, menopause journey that you guys do?
Yeah. For me, so I will walk every single morning. It's just, whether it's between 20 and 40 minutes. And that just, I can't not do that. It's one way that I wake up as well.
I was going to say, it's multi-pronged, right, Maria? You're getting outdoor exposure, sunlight.
Yeah. I almost never have my phone with me. So for someone who is online a lot, it's a really nice.
I can attest because I'm an hour behind her and I send her text messages and then I have to wait till she's home for her walk.
Yeah. And just like making sure and really nailing the first meal of the day, even if I don't nail like the second and third meal, which I usually do. Sometimes lunch is a struggle for me. I usually nail breakfast and dinner. But, if I don't nail breakfast, I will be in catch-up mode for the rest of the day. And I'll find myself like really snacking between lunch and dinner or just like craving like a massive dessert after dinner. Again, not the worst thing in the world if I really want dessert, but I don't want to be like that all the time. And I'll be in an annoyed mood as well. So those two things are pretty profound needle movers for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not as good as her as getting up and getting out in the walk. Although I will say today with the blizzard in the Midwest, I put the leashes on the dogs and we were out in the freezing cold doing it. So I try to get that. But movement for me is huge. I have to hit the gym. If it's 9 o'clock on the clock and I haven't hit the gym yet, it's not happening. And so for me, it's I wake up, I organize my morning, I check in with Maria, we organize our day, set our priorities, and then boom, I'm downstairs. So committed that I put my gym clothes on my sink next to my contacts before I go to bed every single night. To me, it's a discipline issue. It's not that I love it. It's just, I know that's how I function best. I've dealt with a lot of sports injuries. I've dealt with a lot of different surgeries and stuff. And so I know better than a lot of women how when you're put on the bench and you can't exercise, what a privilege you're missing and how much muscle loss is so difficult to recover once you hit 50, 60, 70. So for me, that's my non-negotiable. I'm going to be in the gym. I do recover. Today's a recovery day. That's why the doggy's got to walk early. But then I flip it. In addition, obviously, to that breakfast, I fuel. But for me, it's sleep. If I am so protective against my sleep, in fact, last night, my husband, he's a musician and he had band practice late and they were at our house. And I thought, gosh, they're going so late. And I'm like, I wanted to stay up and talk to him. But I'm like, I'm sorry, babe. You lose. I was in bed at 9:30 with the dogs and half asleep. And he came in at 10:10 and he was like, I'm sorry. I'm like, it's okay. Just let me sleep. No, I need that sleep because to me, the sleep's going to translate into everything. It's going to translate into my mood, how much compassion I'm able to bring to the table and focus and whatnot for our clients, how my gym is going to be in the morning. Am I going to be craving all day long because I didn't get sleep, etc. So for me, it's the movement piece and the sleep, non-negotiable. But I would say Maria and I are so aligned on this sunlight and that first meal. You nail those things, the rest is pretty easy.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
sets the stage for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And I would say that when we say nailing that first meal, it's got to be at minimum of 30 grams of protein.
Yeah. What'd you get this morning, Maria?
35.
Yeah. Okay.
And what did you have?
Yeah, tell us what you ate.
I had eggs and cheese.
Mm.
And yes, it was a lot.
That's
I was gonna say that 35 grams from egg and cheese is a ton. Yeah. I was
I love breakfast. It's like my favorite meal of the day.
Yeah. I was 2 eggs, 3 sausage patties, and a whey shake. So I was about 52 grams of protein. But yeah. And both of us, we think lunch is the biggest inconvenience in the world. I know. So I'm not going to worry about getting this perfect lunch every day because we overachieve on the breakfast front and then we nail dinner. So yeah.
That's actually probably really smart for everyone listening too. I feel like every lunch is the hardest meal of the day, whether you work for yourself or you're sitting at a desk working for someone else, just remembering to get up and leave and eat. Yeah. So I love that bookending idea. It's really smart.
Yeah.
I'm a Linner person. I'm
you are?
I can't eat in the mornings. Like I'm just like, it takes me a hot minute and I do thyroid meds. So you have an hour before you eat, which is fine. But then I struggle. I get my 30 grams of breakfast in, but it's not in one sitting. It's the 2 strips of turkey bacon. And then I go back and have a couple of eggs, like a half an hour later. And then I throw the collagen in my tea or whatever. Like I make it happen, but it's not in one sitting. And then lunch, I don't even think about it until 2. So then I'm like, you know what? Let's just have dinner at 5. And then I'm just like an early dinner.
Wait till you're our age. 5 is a normal dinner time.
I just don't bother with lunch because it's just like dinner ends up being like 7 o'clock and I'm having like a carrot and hummus.
Maria and I are in our pajamas at 7. So
oh my God.
Yeah, usually in my pajamas, having my like evening snack and then.
I have a quick question before we wrap everything up. I just want to touch base a little bit about testing because I think this is really important for listeners too, is testing before going on HRT and then when you're on it, how to have these conversations with your doctor. Because I think a lot of times doctors are like, oh, I already know you're in this phase, so I'll give you progesterone. And I want to hear your thoughts about the importance of testing and how often and all of that.
So ladies at your age, you should really be testing FSH, follicle stimulating hormone. Do it 2-3 times a year. And you start to see, when you start to see it rising and you get above about 20 or 25, you're probably staying up there once you hit 25. And that is going to show some proximity to menopause. It's a really inexpensive test. You can throw it onto any other test that you do, complete blood count or metabolic panel. So that's a great idea. If you have a regular cycle and you want to test day 21, test your estradiol and your progesterone, that's great. That can also be tracked. Another benefit of testing at, say, 30s, early 40s, before we have big changes in how we feel and before we go into perimenopause, is like, what does your estrogen look like? What is your body used to seeing level wise? And that could be something that you might want to approximate when you do HRT. So
I'm literally
you would
over
do that
here
on what
looking
day,
at my
Maria?
test results. Like you were talking, I was like, oh, look at my test results right now. I have them up.
Yeah. And we see that estrogen, look at that day 12 peak, right? That's like where you get your burst and where you have your robust amount. That can be very instrumental for your HRT journey later. So those sorts of testing before, and then once you start, so this is again where the North American Menopause Society, the Medical Society captured by Pfizer, determines what you are entitled to.
Yeah.
Absolute load of crock, to be perfectly frank. They do not believe that testing is necessary, that the doctor should just ask you, geez, Katie and Stasha, how do you feel? Okay, guys, let's be honest. We can feel certain ways and not even connect them to our HRT or our hormones. And so how's that conversation really going to be enlightening and accurate for guiding your dosing? It's not. Newsflash, it's not. Or you could be miserable and tell them all these things and they think, oh, you need more. Maybe it's because you're moving and you've got parents coming and all of these things going on. So it's really, we think, arrogant and borderline malpractice for a physician to dose hormones at any age to anybody and not test them. Do they not test insulin? Do they not test thyroid when they give out those? They sure as heck do. Sex hormones are just as powerful. They're potent. They are incredibly life-changing molecules. To dose them and not test them is absolutely malpractice and negligence. If your doctor's not testing them, get a new doctor.
But that is standard of care.
It is standard of care because the medical society tells us that's all that you need, ladies. And that's all these doctors need because these doctors are so wise and trained on hormones. They're not. Newsflash. So
you want to test like 3 months after you start HRT.
Yeah, you should. Some will test a month in, but most are testing at 3 months. We love to say test every 3 months for the first year or two, and then you can go to once or twice a year testing. But that sort of assumes that you're going to be in the set it or forget it mode of HRT. And the reality is, Maria and I have both been on it 5-7 years. We've changed multiple times. We've changed our dosing. We've changed our forms. We've changed our regimens. We like more monitoring than less. And the reality is now women have access to direct labs. You don't have to have your doctor charge your insurance $2,000, which is, we both received those bills in the past, for something that at LabCorp actually would cost you about $35. Right? So if they're not going to be testing, you test. Same thing with thyroid. How many doctors are just looking at TSH and then deciding your thyroid medication? That's a brain hormone, folks. That has nothing to do with your thyroid actually expressing at the cell and the receptor. So you have options. We would say quarterly would be great, but once or twice a year at a minimum.
I love it. Oh my God. We could talk to you for 10 hours. Thank you so much. We would love to have everybody know where to find you. And then we're going to do a fun little lightning round.
Okay. Putting on the spot. Wise and Well is our Instagram channel, and we try to be really education forward there. And then wiseandwell.me is our website. And then people can buy our book, The Great Menopause Myth, at indie bookstores, Amazon, Barnes and Noble. It is coming in Spanish and French in 2025. Excited to say that. Yeah.
And what is your free gift for everybody today?
21 meals for midlife women. Just really high protein, healthy meals.
Love it.
Ready for the lightning round?
Okay.
Go with your gut. Go with your intuition.
Don't be shocked. I'm going to predict right now. Don't be shocked if the two of us mimic each other's answers, because there's almost like an alignment here that's hard to ignore.
It's not a lie. Yeah.
We get it.
We get it. Besties over here too. What is your biggest craving?
Me would be pizza.
Mm.
Really?
Yeah. I like pizza. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Me, it's chocolate. Chocolate and chocolate.
Salty, fatty, delicious.
Salted chocolate would even be better.
Yeah.
Oh, it sounds really good. That combination is great. Pizza and chocolate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
So when you're craving these things, is that what do you eat the pizza? Do you eat the chocolate?
Probably. I don't really have pizza at home, so I'd have to go out for it. Yeah. I'm not saying I wouldn't have it, but I don't know that. I honestly don't have a ton of cravings. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the same. I will usually check in with myself. Are you thirsty? When's the last time you had something to drink? Because I probably haven't gotten up from my desk in hours. Salt is usually something that will nix it for me because I'm fairly low carb, and salt, you tend to sodium waste when you're super low carb because you keep your insulin low. So it's usually hydrate with some electrolytes and then check in with myself. And if I still want it, I know that I'm not a moderator. I'm not someone who can just be like, have it in the house, whatever. It's just eat it and be done, over with, or keep it out. So I usually, my after dinner is like a little chalk zero square of chocolate. And I'm not going to beat myself up over it. Maria and I are far from focused on perfect.
No.
We're not pro anti-diet culture at all either. I think this healthy at any size stuff gets very dangerous. There's a reality to metabolic health, but we've lived a lot of years and we value them and we don't want to take anything for granted. And so if we have an opportunity and she's out with her husband for a beautiful dinner, or I'm out with my kids or vice versa, whatever, and someone says, would you like some creme brulee? Do you want this? Yes. Yes, we do.
Yes. Well, we also travel a lot, and like to travel and not like eat the foods that are, say, local to that country, because that's what do you have, like a waffle in Norway or something?
Oh
like
God, it's the best. Covered in whipped cream and chocolate and everything. Yes.
Yeah.
How can you not? That's like life experience.
It is.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
What is your favorite way to move?
Oh, for me, it would be walking. Yeah.
Okay. So if we're talking about functional movement, for me, it would be hiking, but I do like to lift heavy things. I do. The last 3 days have been super heavy in my programming, and my husband's, you simultaneously complain and pat yourself on the back. I'm like, because it's awesome. Yeah.
What's the number one self-care thing that you do when you feel stressed?
I think what I do is I feel stressed. I'll say to my husband, I don't feel like cooking. And then he's, okay, let's go out to dinner. I guess that's what I do. Yeah.
For me, it's my dogs. My dogs are my oxytocin. I know that rubbing their ears is like oxytocin. So I rub their ears, which gives me oxytocin. Yeah.
Perfect. When you're not working with clients, but when you're just in the background working, what music do you like to listen to?
Oh, gee, I have a lot, but I have a whole playlist of Hans Zimmer movie themes like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I am going to absolutely just make people scream. My younger kids, married, and I share a love of certain country music artists. And my daughter-in-law has made this unbelievable mix and shared it all on Spotify. And so usually that's me. I just turn that on and it plays in the background. And it's a mix of singer-songwriter stuff and some country and whatever. But I like songs that tell stories. And so I usually listen to that.
Fun.
Yeah.
Since you both traveled a lot, what's your favorite country or place that you've been?
That's easy. I could answer hers and she could answer mine. Feel free. Kristen, where's my favorite place?
Maria is Italy. Italy is her happy place.
And
she
Kristen
wants to buy a place there.
Oh, maybe. I don't know about that, but Kristen is Norway.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Nice. Favorite holiday?
Mine's Thanksgiving. I literally am like on the verge of tears every single day with excitement over it. It's, as moms, we're in charge of the gifts and all the rigmarole at Christmas. And I love Christmas as well. It was when our kids would come home for the longest periods of time and all that good stuff. But it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And Thanksgiving to me is the whole point is to sit around the table, break bread with your loved ones, and just be grateful. And that's life, right? Is community and gratitude and good food. There's nothing better than that. So I love Thanksgiving.
Yeah, me too. It's non-commercial as well, which I love. Yeah, it's just wonderful.
Yeah, right there with you.
Is there any food that you don't like?
I don't like oysters.
I'm going to say that. I'm like anything that's slimy and snotty.
Yeah. Strangely, I also don't like lobster, but I will eat shrimp.
Oh, and I could eat lobster till I smell like it. So yeah.
Pumpkin spice, yay or nay?
Oh, that's a nay for Kristen. Yes, I like it a lot. I like it.
Doesn't have to be the latte. It can be
No, I don't typically don't drink that. I love those warm pumpkin spice things. If I want to trigger her, I'll send her the recipe for like pumpkin spice muffins or
And she'll send it with without comment. Like she'll just DM me a recipe and just wait until I send her the green vomit emojis.
Oh, best friend trolling. I love it.
Do you both cook?
Oh, a lot.
We're
Yeah.
huge cooks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say that Maria and I both grew up and then raised our families with kind of the mantra of cooking is love made visible. And that's just, we love the food. We love to nourish. We love to feed others. It's our happy place.
Favorite place to work?
Home.
Yeah.
I feel really blessed to be able to do this work and do it from home. And if I have a few hours break, I can go out for another like little walk in the middle of the day sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. Taking my laptop out to the pool with my dogs is pretty cool. So I'll take that any day.
Last question. What is your ideal Friday night?
Oh, for me, it's just a date night with my husband. We try a new restaurant. We walk, just find maybe a nature path or walk close to the beach or something like that.
Yeah. It's hard for me to answer because it's seasonal dependent, I would say. Friday night in the summer is going to be, you call the neighbors for that spontaneous, hey guys, come over, throw some steaks on, in and out of the pool, sitting in the sun, enjoying a fire. In the winter right now, I'm a diehard Minnesotan by birth, and my husband is too. And so it's usually really good hockey game, a bag of popcorn, and some hot chocolate element on the couch with our dogs. That's it.
Thank you, ladies, so much for being here today. I feel like we
No, it's
learned
our pleasure.
so much information and love chatting with another pair of besties. And I'm excited to share this with my mom too. Honestly, I think
Sweet.
wasn't expecting to ask about that, but I was like, I'm actually really curious about what happens because we're all going there, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Really
Give her the
buckle it
book.
together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
give her the book. I think a lot of older women are reading it just going, wait a minute. Why am
Yeah.
I just learning this now? Kind of thing.
Mhm.
So
100%. Yeah. We hope to have you both on again in the future. This is so informative. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. And thank you everyone for listening. And we'll see you in our next episode coming next week. Bye for now.
A big shout out and thank you to our sponsors for today's episode, Period Coaching School and Katie Bresek Wellness.
Thanks to you, our favorite bestie, for listening to the Period Besties Podcast, where no topic is TMI. And of course, share this episode with your besties.
Remember to leave us a 5-star review, nothing less than the best for us besties, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
You can follow us on Instagram at Stasha Washburn and at Katie Bresak, or email us at periodbestiespodcast@gmail.com.
Check out more about us at katiebresak.com and periodcoachingschool.com. And of course, check the show notes for free goodies and extras that support this episode.
We'll see you on the next episode.
Bye for now, besties.